points down. It's our #1 job. No matter how you do it. I told people last year we're not into excuse making. Get the job done. Coaches, players, everything. So, all we do is just focus and play.
When something like that happens and you have a game like the Louisville game, as a coach, what do you do to get them back locked in, believing again?
Well, first of all, what you got to do is show why it happened. And then if you see why, then you learn from it. You don't dwell on the past, but you do learn from the past. And I think that's when you show why things went the way they did. And again, there's always 4 or 5 plays in the game that affect the outcome of the game. No matter what the score winds up, you make those 4 or 5 plays early, then it can be a totally different outcome. Again, I believe you learn from the past, but you don't dwell on it. You got to move forward.
Don't you got 10 or 11 returning starters?
9 of 11, Marquez and Marcus.
Okay, yeah, but that's a good thing.
Right, that's a good thing. You're right.
His first game,
right. Again, we've had other guys that started in spots, and those guys have, DeMarcus and Marquez they were very consistent players for us, but we got a lot of guys coming back. We're excited about that. That's, there's no substitute for learning how to play this game, but to play the game. That's how you learn how to play. You don't learn it from sitting on the sidelines. You have to learn your schemes from the book. But to process everything, you've got to be able to play. So when you've had guys that's been on the field, it's definitely.
Talk a little bit about Derwin James. What separates himself from everybody else? A lot of publications got him as the #1 player in college football.
Well, let's just start. I always, when I talk about Derwin, talk about him as a person. When he came here, and I think he'll tell you this too, not only on the field, everything he does, he wants to be the very best at. He's very good in the classroom. He's a very smart young man. He's driven in whatever he does. He wants to be the very best. So I think when guys are consistent like that, when you combine that kind of work ethic with that, because there's no doubt he's naturally talented. I mean, anybody can see that. And when you combine that, that gives him a chance to be what I call an elite player. But you have to do it every game, every practice, and that's the one thing that he does is he really works in his craft.
When you have a player like him, when he goes and leads by example of that, what does it do for the rest of the team and the rest of the defense?
Well, if you take all of your, Jimbo says this all the time, you are never truly a great player unless you can affect your teammates in a positive way. And when you take a player with great athleticism and he becomes the hardest worker, and everybody says, you know what, he's doing that, I'm doing that. Take all your great players from every sport, team sport. You talk to Coach Andrews back in the day. Leon was as hard a worker as the other coach, and I believe that you lead by example.
Speaking of #1, Tavares McFadden, he emerged as the leader. Well, he tied for the lead in interception last year. Can you speak about the importance of his emergence and the improvement that you've seen throughout his time here at Florida State?
Tavares, he had some tough things early too, and you got a choice. You can either get better or get worse. You're not going to stay the same. And Tavares kept working. I mean, he knew he had ability to do it. Again, just like we were saying a minute ago, when the only way you learn how to play this game is to play. And experience, there's no substitute for experience. So I think, as the year went along, he got more and more experience, and he became a productive player.
How strong can this DB unit be with the return of Derwin and Nate Andrews?
I think we don't talk about just the DB unit. We just talk about team, doing your job to help the team. And if you do that, then the results will show. And they, we emphasize that with them. They emphasize it with themselves. For example, in practice, work. It's a whole unit. I mean, the front plays good. it benefits the secondary. The secondary plays good, it benefits the front. You know, same way team-wise. Defensively, you know, if we're good at 3 and out, then it helps our offensive field position and helps our special teams. So it's a team thing. So I don't really like to just focus just on a specific unit because I want it to, again, our guys are so focused on team.
Coach, how did Derwin handle the injury, just mentally and coming back home? Do you think the other guys around him saw, you know, how he handled that and learned from him and, you know, to be a leader?
I do. I think the biggest thing for Derwin, the first thing he told me, and first thing he told me, he said, Coach, you always say you don't worry about the things you can't control. And that was something that he couldn't control. But even saying that, I think for a week or two, I mean, it affects you mentally. I mean, and I think all of us, not only Derwin and all the other players, but all of us, a lot of times we don't realize stuff can be going like that. And I think that hit him is, you know what, this could end, you know, this quick. But what I did see was his ability to come back and study the game. You know, on the sidelines, he was very, very good with his teammates. Encouraging. I think from a scheme standpoint, he understood the situations better in the game, first, second, third down. So he made the most out of it that he possibly could.
Coach, Matthew Thomas has been a tough road for him, but you see what he did in the Orange Bowl and all. Do you think he's ready for it?
Yeah, I think Matthew showed, and there's been, you know, he's had games before where you see the flashes. And you're right, in that bowl game, I mean, he played consistent for 4 quarters. He was very athletic, very slippery. He's gotten better in the run game, moving pressure. He's a guy that's, you know, slithery and can get through. He's just got very good instinct, you know, as a blitzer. So I think he's working really hard. He's put hard work in there, and you'll see it.
Your first test is against Alabama.
Right.
Have you seen any change in the energy within the locker room between your players or the coaches on the defensive side of the ball?
I think you know, as a team, we're very focused on right now getting better. There's no doubt our first opponent, very good football team, very good players, very good coaches. I mean, it's a challenge, but you know, Jimbo talks about it all the time. It's not the team that you play, it's the team that you are. We got to worry about us right now and getting better on every snap. But yes, the energy's been very good. You know, tempo of practice has been very good. Kids are excited to be here. Coaches are excited to be here. I mean, every day I walk on that practice field, I'm thinking, you know what? It's exactly where I want to be. So, and I think the players will see that. You know, over the years, coaching the secondary, I have always had a saying, some guys, the ball finds them. You know, he's one of those guys that's instinctive. You know, his length helps him, you know, especially, you know, when he puts his arms up, you know, I mean, he's got a long wingspan, and he's gotten better at using those hands and bump and run, but, you know, instinctively, that's one thing when you're looking for defensive backs, I believe, when you're evaluating. One of the things you want to see is, can they find the ball? How many plays do they make on the ball? Because at the end of the day, getting the ball, there's nothing you do for your team is more important than getting the ball back and taking it.
Coach, it still seemed like some quarterbacks felt the need to test McFadden though over the season. What does he have to do to make sure that quarterbacks don't even bother testing him anymore?
Well, a lot of times, you know, he's into the boundary. That's the short side of the field. It's a different game in college, so you're going to get a lot more throws into that boundary, you know, than you do. But again, it doesn't matter. You can't, on one play, you can't say this guy's not going to challenge. People are going to throw. You know, they're going to throw, and when you do that, you got to be able to play every snap and make it.
And do you see him kind of just craving that challenge, though? See him wanting that challenge from the quarterback?
I think right now, again, it's not thinking that as it is working on the fundamentals to make his game better. You know, and again, if you do what you're supposed to, protecting it right, you play, you know, within the scheme of the defense, the results will come when, you know, play doesn't care who makes it. It doesn't matter whether it's Tavares, whether it's Josh Sweat, whether it's Matthew Thomas, but play doesn't care who makes it. But when it comes time for you to have that opportunity, so when they do, you know, give him those opportunities, and see him make the play.
Like you said, you guys returned 9 of your 11 starters. What is the biggest improvement that you've seen from your team this year in camp so far?
Well, I think, first of all, it starts up front. I think Odell Higgins has done an unbelievable job, you know, developing these defensive linemen. Derek Nottie, to me, he's as quick and powerful, you know, and works at the game. You know, Fred Jones has done a nice job. All those guys up front, Marcus Christmas, Wiley, even the younger guys coming in. So that's where it starts. I've seen a lot of improvement there. Brian Burns has grown up, in my opinion, grown up a lot. He's filled out, been playing more physical. Josh Sweat is in a good place right now. Jalen Wilkerson, you know, Brad Lauren has done a great job with those guys. You know, Roderick Hoskins, sometimes he's been here, played a lot of football, made some really good plays. You see him, you know, just more comfortable. He and Matthew both, and, you know, and then Jacob Pugh has just been since, you know, last season. I think, to me, he's one of your, I wouldn't say unheralded, but you know, he makes a lot of plays, a lot of critical plays, and he's done a very good job. You know, in the secondary, I just see those guys working and competing. I mean, that's what you got to do every day. That's the one thing I love, you know, working for Jimbo is he's going to create competition every day in practice. Every day. It's about competing. And that's, you know, the way we practice, that's how guys develop.
How important is Pugh to the success of this defense?
Big time. I mean, anytime you have a linebacker that can rush and cover, I mean, that's valuable because you don't have to substitute, you know, as much. He's gotten better, so much better in his coverage skills. He's always been a good pressure guy. And even if he, you know, even when we talk about pressure, it's affecting the quarterback because of his length, because of his power, those kinds of things just helps him. And when he can do that, it definitely it gives you more opportunities, you know, as a whole defense.
With Derwin, how many different spots could you line him up this year?
You know, a lot of that depends on down and distance. A lot of it depends on, you know, what type team you're playing. You know, whether it be a spread team. You know, again, I mentioned down and distance, third down. You know, he's very multiple because he studies the game. He understands, you know, how everything fits. What I call, he's not a tunnel vision guy. You know, it's not just what I do. He understands what everybody does, so that gives you some, you know, opportunities to be multiple with him.
But being in 3-4 different position group meetings in a different day, I mean, we talk.
You're talking about meetings?
Yeah.
Well, we do that all together. We install that, you know, that stuff together, so everybody is seeing, you know, and again, it's situations that we do those things with them, so that kind of, you know, compartmentalizes those things.
Coach, as great as it was physically, how much you missed that? The leadership, how do you still flash it?
Oh, there's no, I mean, he had developed so much as a freshman. As the year gone along, he had a great camp. And again, I mean, his teammates love him. I mean, he's a great young man. So anytime you lose a guy like that, it affects you. But as I said, it affects your team. You know what? You can't make excuses about it. You got to go and play. And but it definitely, I think he did a good job. You know, in the position he was, like I said a minute ago, of doing what he could to be a leader. And influencing his teammates in a positive way.
What allowed Brian Burns, whether it was physical, mental, whatever it was, to have the success that he
Well, I think Brian, along with just like Derwin was as a freshman, I think there's no doubt Brian's very good athletically. Okay, comes out of a good football program, been coached very well, and he can process the game. When I say processing the game, when you process the game, it means you can play fast. You know, things don't slow you down. So I think that probably had more to do with his success than anything. And he's got a lot of want to. He wants to be a great player.
You guys faced a Heisman winner and 2 top 12 quarterbacks last year. How much do you think going through that fire with that defense will strengthen you this year?
Well, I do know this. It's like I said a minute ago. The only way the only way you get better is to play. But you got to play every week, and it doesn't matter who it is. You got to line up, and you got to play, and you got to defend them. You got to cover people on the outside. You got to rush the passer. You got to stop run. But definitely, anytime you play against those types, listen, we played a lot of great quarterbacks last year. We play a lot of great quarterbacks this year. And when you come to this level of football, that's what you're going to do. So, definitely, experience always helps.
How does the secondary kind of compare to the 2013 secondary?